All right. Well, welcome, writers, to yet another month. I can't believe how fast 2023 is going already. I was super sick during the first Fireside chat of the year with Becca Syme. I did watch it. It was awesome. But I am very happy to report that I'm feeling quite well. Thank you very much. So yay for that. I need that. So today we have Paul Austin Ardoin. Did I say that correctly? All right. Yeah. Who's doing a presentation, is going to be teaching all of us what he did when he reworked and relaunched a series for him that wasn't performing out of the gate like he'd wanted it to. He had just been telling me about how he was doing this and how it was going, giving me updates. And I said, would you be willing to do a fireside chat about this? Because this is something that I get a lot of questions from writers about, that I have this older series, it isn't performing the way I wanted it to. What can I do? What are the pitfalls to avoid when relaunching? And so I feel like this is going to end up being one of our more popular firesides. And yeah, so I'm excited to hear what he has to say. And Paul, take it away. Okay, Paul, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, that would help. All right. Thanks,
It
everyone.
would, like just a little bit.
Yeah. Thanks, Erin. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to be talking today about rebranding a series. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I decided to rebrand my series, how I discovered that it really needed to be rebranded. I think for a lot of us, we're very close to our books, and having the mindset to be able to hear stuff we don't want to hear is kind of important. So I'm going to start with that context. So why I decided to change not only the cover and the blurb and that sort of thing, but also the entire book and series titles, and then what I did to try to keep all of my quotes and all of the history of the ebooks and everything like that. The importance of owning your own ISBN when you're doing this, what changes you need to make on the storefront, and then what you need to do to get your word out to your readers so that you can have a successful relaunch of your relaunch series. So when your books don't meet reader expectations, so let me give you a little bit of background on this. I was very lucky to have a BookBub featured deal in July of 2020, in the early days of the pandemic, on my first series, book one. It dramatically changed my author income and has kind of dramatically changed my life. I haven't quit my day job yet, but I'm certainly on my way to being able to do that in a few years. Back then I had a 5-book series, now I have an 8-book series. The amount of read through that I'm getting on the full series, I've got a whole marketing plan around it. And part of my plan for quitting my job was, my day job was to basically duplicate the success I had with that series. So the second book in the second series that I put out there was called Murders of Substance. Unfortunately, when I launched that series, I failed to keep my readers in mind. Now, I had this wicked, clever inspiration that I had, and as I talk about it, I think you'll be able to understand why I wasn't connecting with my readers when I did this. So I'm a child of the 80s. Back when I was in high school, I loved this band called New Order. They came out of this punk band called Joy Division, and their one of their compilation albums has 12 songs on it that I looked at the track list one day and I'm like, those are really good titles for murder mystery novels. And so I had this flash of inspiration. I was going to write a 12-book series, not just with these names for my murder mystery novels, but all focused around poisoning murders. Get it? Substance. Murders of Substance. The album was called Substance. Super clever. I'm going to take the 4 members of the band and I'm going to mess with their names and come up with the main characters for this, so that there's like an FBI handler and a consultant who are like Kep Woodhead. Kep is Aramaic for Peter, and Peter Hook's real name is Peter Woodhead. Oh, it's just, and Stephen Morris is now Morris Stevenson. Isn't that clever? Well, and so the result that I had was based, as you can see, on the original cover of New Order's Substance album. I then mocked up some covers for my cover designer for the next 3 books in the series. And as I think many of you who may read murder mysteries can tell, there's a good reason why that new book wasn't selling. And the first thing I thought of was that the cover was, even though it was cleverly made to look like the New Order Substance album, for people who didn't know about the Substance album or didn't make the connection, it looked like a nonfiction book, maybe about drug addiction or about the drug war or about the history of syringes or something like that. It did not look like a murder mystery novel. So the first thing that I did was I went back to my cover designer and I had him change from the nonfiction book about the drug war to something that looked a lot more thriller-like. First of all, these look like fiction, so that was a positive. It looked like a thriller. I thought these were appropriate for a hard-boiled mystery. But again, you take a look at that second book in particular, Everything's Gone Green, with the gas mask on the front of it. And the feedback that I got, both asked for and unasked for, first of all, there were a lot of people who just weren't sure about the title, Everything's Gone Green. Now, granted, I thought it was the one song from that list that wasn't a great fit for a murder mystery, but I thought I'd just power through book 2 and then take it through the rest of the series. But other people were like, it looks really creepy. A ton of people thought it was a post-apocalyptic thriller instead of a hard-boiled murder mystery in the vein of Sue Grafton. The images, and this is such a common mistake, and when newbie authors come to me and ask me for advice, one of the things that I say is, you might fall in love with an image that is totally relevant to the story, but it doesn't matter if that image is relevant to the story or not. When people see that cover, they want to know exactly the kind of book they're going to get. They don't really care if the scene on the cover is a scene from the book, or if the thing on the cover plays a big role in the plot of the book or not. They want to pick up a murder mystery, take a look at the cover and go, oh, this looks like a murder mystery I would like, or this looks like a romance book I would like, or this looks like an epic fantasy that I would like. And they don't care that a syringe was the murder weapon in book 1, and that there was a toxic airborne event in book 2 that required our heroine to don a gas mask so she could save her life. People don't care about the images that are relevant to the book. They only care about, does it meet their expectations? And even worse, when it comes to the titles of these, no one cared about New Order. Most of my readers don't even know who New Order is, or if they do, it was something they danced to on the dance floor 40 years ago. Nobody caught any of the special Easter eggs or the super clever things that I had done with wordplay, or that I had named the previous handler after the old Joy Division manager. Nobody got that, and nobody cared. The book series title also didn't match the expectations of mystery series. When you take a look at mystery series today, everything is the name of the sleuth mysteries, or the name of the sleuth investigations, or something like that. Nothing says murders of substance or anything like that, murders of the heart or murders of whatever. That's just not part of the expectation there. And even though I thought, well, it's got murders in the title, people are going to know they're murder mysteries. No, they're not, because it doesn't meet their expectation of what literally every other possible hard-boiled mystery series out there has. Even what is popularly known as the Alphabet series by Sue Grafton, on the cover, those say a Kinsey Millhone mystery. They don't say an Alphabet series murder. A Hercule Poirot mystery, a Jane Marple mystery, a Stephanie Plum novel. That's what people expect, and that's not what I gave them. So if you have ever been in a situation, you know how utterly deflating it is to be in this position. One of the things that is very clear is that when you have a book title, it's really difficult to change it. And it's really difficult to change a series title. And you've already launched it to the people who might be reading it. It's very disheartening to be in that situation, but I knew that this is where I was. So the first thing that I did was I figured, okay, well, I'm going to have to do this, but before I look into doing it, is there something better that I can come up with? So I looked at the titles of the bestsellers in the genre. I looked at the covers of the bestsellers in the genre. Even though I was one of those bestsellers in the genre, I had not internalized that yet. Hard-boiled mysteries, their covers have settings. They don't have weapons or usually people on them. Those are usually in the domain of thrillers, and it's a fine line, but it's a very important line on that. So I did the research I should have done before I launched this series at this point. And I mean, this was, a good 9 months or a year too late to do it. But as you'll see, there was a way to rescue this. So I wound up doing a complete rebrand of the whole series. The opening nonfiction book was gone. The post-apocalyptic thrillers were gone. I rebranded everything with The Blank Murder, which is a very common naming convention for murder mysteries out there. And as you can see, it's book one of the Woodhead and Becker mysteries, the consultant and the handler. It's also a very common series name. Little twist on it with some of the things that are done, but I went back to my excellent cover designer, told him about, here are the settings here. He took a picture of Milwaukee's Riverwalk. He took a picture of downtown Bend, Oregon. And he did something that was much more on brand for a hard-boiled murder mystery than the two previous failures had been. And by the way, just rebranding the covers of Ceremony and Everything's Gone Green didn't move the needle at all. So I knew that I had to do something. I knew I had to do something pretty dramatic, and this is pretty dramatic. So now that I have the rebrand, how am I supposed to implement that rebrand so that I'm successful in this? Previously I had swapped covers for my books before without a problem. I'd updated the internal text, the manuscript of the document. In fact, for my first book, when I had that BookBub featured deal, my editor convinced me to rewrite the first 7 chapters. I swapped that, a third of that manuscript out with no problem. There wasn't any glitch or hitch on any of the platforms. But I had never changed series titles, and I'd never changed book titles before. Could I keep my reviews? Could I keep my ranking? Could I have what little momentum I had gained with those two books? Could I keep that? I didn't want to do anything that was so outside of the 9 dots that Amazon would decide to turn off the lights on my account either, because I've certainly heard horror stories about that. And I think a lot of the reason why we are all wide authors here is because we've heard horror stories like that, and we don't want Amazon to control that much of our writing income. So I came up with a plan, and one of the first things I did on this plan was to call Mark Leslie Lefebvre. He was in the traditional publishing world before moving over to Kobo, and he said, "Yeah, Paul, this is something that you can do." I actually worked on a book where we changed the title, and we didn't have to change the ISBN. I'm not quite sure how you can do it, but I know you can do it, and I believe in you. He might not have said that last thing, but I am sure he meant it. So a couple of caveats before we started the plan here. So I'm based in the USA, and I go through Bowker for my ISBNs. If you live outside of the US, your ISBN agency, whether it's the Canadian government or whatever, they might not allow you to do some of the things that I did here. Now, if you don't own your own ISBN, that's not something I have familiarity with. However, I spoke actually the day before yesterday with an author who only had the ISBNs from the various storefronts, and she rebranded a set of her novels with new titles and with a new series of a new series title. And she was able to do a lot of the things here and was able to get them done. Now, she did that 2 years ago, so I'm not quite sure if the tools have changed or anything like that. What I'm telling you is about 6 months old. So hopefully all of those tools are still in place and everything like that. Even if you can't do this as complex, but it was seamless enough where I was able to keep all my reviews and everything like that. You can still unpublish your old title and republish a new title. And even if you lose reviews and sales information, it might still be worth it to be able to meet those expectations of your readers. So in fact, that is what I would have done if I hadn't been able to get this to work. Also, I go through Drafted Digital to publish through Apple. So I'm not quite sure what the process is on Apple Books. I know it's slightly different for each of the tools out there. I also did not publish this to Smashwords or StreetLib or Publish Drive. So if your books are in those, your mileage may vary, or depending on the country you live, your kilometerage may vary. So the first thing I did was I started with my ISBN. If you're in the USA and you go through Bowker, this is their homepage. You can go to My Account and you can manage your ISBNs from their My Identifiers site. So it's myidentifiers.com, or you can go to bowker.com and get to this. Now you will have a list of all of the ISBNs that you own. Click on the one you want to change, and this is quite easy. You just type in the new book title and hit save. Now if you want to change the description of your book, you can do that there. If you want to change the cover of your book, you can do it there. You don't have to have a book cover uploaded to the Bowker title dashboard, but you can. So update everything that is appropriate for you to update there. I had not uploaded a cover for this book, so I just selected Everything's Gone Green and I changed it to The Bridegroom Murder. Then I waited for it to populate in Bowker. This took about 24 hours, I think. I might give it up to 72 hours for it to work. There isn't an email, at least I don't believe I received an email for it, but it did repopulate. As soon as it repopulated in Bowker, then I think you're ready to do the next step in the process. And the next step in the process is to go to your stores and your aggregators. And I'm going to say, before we move on from Bowker, this is for the ebook only, where you can change the title. For print books, your print book is already out there in the world. Somebody is holding a copy of the thing with the old title in their hands right now. You cannot change the title of a print book with an ISBN connected to it. So you will have to create a new title with a new ISBN if you do this, and that complicates things a little bit, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. You probably want to do that at the same time that you do your ebook, so that all of the Bowker stuff is done at the same time. All right, then you go to your stores and your aggregators. Lots of people start with KDP when they begin to publish. I don't think you should start with Amazon. It's got the most complex set of instructions for doing this. And once you do it with some of the other stores, you'll kind of know some of the things to watch out for, so that you won't be overwhelmed by the many things you have to do on Amazon. I also think, we all hear stories about Amazon's bots and they're checking with other sites and stuff like that. I know, they're constantly checking for price matching and things like that. So it's very important to, I thought it was very important to minimize the conflicts that Amazon would find. So that's one of the reasons I didn't go with Amazon. I started with Kobo, and I started with Barnes and Noble. So here's the Kobo dashboard. You go into ebooks, you select your ebook, and you edit your ebook information from this. I just changed the title from Everything's Gone Green to The Bridegroom Murder. I updated the new cover for the book. I changed the series name from Murders of Substance to the Woodhead and Becker Mysteries, and that was about it. The one other thing that I did, and I did this on all the pages in the synopsis, and I didn't do this on Bowker, but in the synopsis of all of the stores, the synopsis of the book description, or whatever we call what us authors commonly refer to as the blurb, I put in a bold-faced paragraph that very clearly stated that this book had been published before under the old name with the old publication date. One of the things that I really wanted to avoid was for any of my readers to get confused. Oh, Paul has a new book out. And if they had purchased Ceremony, even though it looked like a nonfiction book about the drug war, I didn't want them to accidentally purchase this book a second time and then be mad at me. I don't think that's good for my long-term business. So I wanted to make sure that I was absolutely as clear as possible that this book had been published under a different name before, and the original publishing date. So you won't need to do anything else on Kobo, Barnes and Noble, Drafted Digital, or Google Play. The one exception for this is Barnes and Noble. If you use their print services through Barnes and Noble, you will have to unpublish your print book. You will have to add a new print book with the new ISBN and new title. And actually, with Barnes and Noble, they have a very difficult time. They don't want you to match the ISBN that you use with Drafted Digital or Amazon, so I just use the Barnes and Noble ISBN. It's a little bit more complicated, but you basically unpublish. You unpublish the paperback book and you republish it. I am seeing a question here. I don't see where the series name is listed in my identifiers. It is not listed in my identifiers, although some people use the subtitle for the series name in there. I don't have the title in my identifiers, which I think might have been one of the reasons why it was, relatively easy for me to do this, because there was only the book title to match against and not anything else. Now, when Kobo and Barnes & Noble and Draft Digital and Google Play, when I saved all these things, if any of those online stores searched for that ISBN to make sure that it matched with the title, it would have matched with the title because I had waited for Bowker to populate that. I think that, I don't know how things work underneath the curtain, but behind the curtain here, but I would imagine that was one of the reasons why this went through on these 4 stores with absolutely no problem. And as I said, I think this probably works for Apple Books or Smashwords or the other aggregators, but I don't have familiarity with it, so I don't have firsthand knowledge of that. All right, now once you've done those 4, it is time for the Amazon monster, and of course they are different. Now you can see if you go into KDP and then you click on Kindle ebook details, you can see very clearly it says this field cannot be changed after your book is published, so don't even try. However, they will let you select it and retype something else. So, and they'll do the same thing with the series details. Just click on that edit series details and change the name from your old series title to your new series title. And that is step 1 here. Remember to upload your cover. Remember to change your, I think Amazon calls it a book description here, or a product description here. Make sure to add this book was published as blah, blah, blah in August of blah, blah, blah. And then when you get to the ebook pricing, I don't mess with the ebook pricing here because I want to change as little as possible to at first to make sure things go smoothly. And then I clicked on publish your Kindle ebook. And within 2 days, I got a rejection saying, basically, you weren't supposed to change your title. And then when I went back into KDP, it said, you know how it says live or publishing or something like that as soon as when you first publish one of your books? Well, it said live with unpublished changes. And when it says live with unpublished changes, and you go back in and you look to see what it has in the dashboard, all of your new information that you put in is still there. Amazon doesn't delete it and put the old stuff in there. It just leaves the new stuff that's wrong and can't be submitted in it. So what I did was I right-clicked on it, or I guess I just clicked on these 3 dots, and it says unpublish ebook, and I unpublished the ebook. And then I got the email telling me my ebook was unpublished. And then I went back into the KDP dashboard and I republished it. Now this took 3 days, 4 days, something like that, because Amazon is slow. Some of these steps came like that. I think the first time I tried it, it took like 3 days, and then I had a second book and it took like 24 hours to do. Again, your mileage may vary on this. This is a very convoluted process, and it worked for me. You may have a different order of events, and you may find that worked for you. I know some people have tried a different order of events and complained to me that it didn't work. I think this order of events works for a couple of reasons. This is pure conjecture, by the way, but this is just my thought process of why this is doing it. So the title entered in the dashboard, when you first change it and then it stays with the unpublished changes, it hasn't changed between your unpublishing of the book and your republishing of the book. So when it was unpublished, it was called new title. When you republish it, it's called new title. Also, the new title happens to match the ISBN of the Bowker record, and the Bowker record says new title on it. Or I could just be wrong, and there's some sort of Amazon magic that's happening under the scenes, and I don't know what I'm talking about. That is certainly a possibility. But this order of events worked for me. Now, when you do your print books here, you will have to create a new print book with your new ISBN for your paperback or your hardback or whatever. And when you do that, you will need to unlink your old book from your ebook, and you'll have to link your new book to your ebook. Now, this is a process that took me a couple times before the change stuck. I did this and I came back and the old file was still there, and I did it and I came back and the old file was still there, and then the third time was the charm. And then the second book took it on the first try. You'll have to do this for Amazon KDP and match the books. You'll have to do the same thing. It's a slightly different process on Barnes & Noble, but if you can get through the Amazon KDP process, you can get through the Barnes & Noble print process. It's a little bit easier. And then, of course, Ingram Spark, as I hope we all know, never go through Ingram Spark for ebook distribution, just print distribution. If you've only gone through it for print distribution, there's nothing to link. So just publish your new book, unpublish your old title of that, and then you should be good to go with that. So when I unpublished and republished, my rank stayed the same. I kept all of my reviews. I didn't have to call Amazon or send them an email and ask them to move these here. And the same thing happened for Kobo and for Barnes and Noble and for Google Play and for Apple as well, that I'd gone through from Drafted Digital. Now, I didn't check some of the other Drafted Digital stores like Tolino or Vivlio or those or the online libraries that I go through for them. I go through Overdrive for Kobo, and I didn't check the Kobo Overdrive library either. But I make 99.9% of my sales on those big 5 platforms. So that's what worked for me here. So now that everything was live, and I had my books that were connected to the reviews and the sales pages and the sales rankings and everything like that, I communicated with my readers about it. I sent in my next. I actually sent a series of newsletters about this. I sent a couple that said, "I'm going to do this." 2 weeks later, I sent another one where one of the 3 articles that I had in there was, "Remember when I said I was going to do this? I'm still going to do this." And then the day that everything went live, or the Tuesday after everything went live, I sent this. Murders of Substance is becoming the Murders and Woodhead and Becker mysteries. I made sure to have a graphic that had all of the covers on them, so that if old readers had seen or purchased the old cover, they would know that it was the same book in the second iteration where I only changed the cover, and then in the final iteration where I changed everything about the book. And I let them know exactly why I did it, because I think transparency when you do something this dramatic is important for this. And even though it was like, somebody might be like, "Oh, Paul, do you have any idea what you're doing?" I don't think you do. I still think it would be better than not giving them a reason or trying to make something up that sounded more professional than, "I didn't listen to my readers and I screwed up." Now, I didn't say I didn't listen to my readers and I screwed up, but I said, several experts pointed out that these covers and these titles didn't match what was in the murder mystery genre that I want to sell in. So I think changing these are going to be a better reader experience, and that's why I'm changing it. And I let readers know all of the changes that were happening. This book was formerly called this book. This book was formerly called this book. And then, of course, a link to if somebody had seen this and went, oh, I didn't buy this because I didn't want to read a nonfiction book about the drug war. They would be able to, have a one button click and go to my books to read page. I also, about 2 weeks later, I dropped the first book to 99 cents, and I did a bargain booksy with it, just to kind of juice it a little bit. And then I went back to my intro $2.99 price on book one, just to try to get the new look and feel out there to more readers. So I think, obviously, as when we do our own marketing, one of our biggest challenges is to get what we produce in front of our readers, and I think that was an important step here. So how did that work? So the first change, the new covers, didn't move the needle as I said before. I had the same number of rather abysmal sales before, in the 3 weeks before the cover change and the 3 weeks after. Retitling the book in the series almost doubled the series sales, and I pulled out the week that I had it running for 99 cents here. I took the month that I did the change, I ignored, but the month before the change and the month after the change is what I compared. And while I'm still a little disappointed in the sales, the sales numbers, it was almost twice as many, which is big. It definitely paid for the cover redesigns. It definitely the 99 cent book promo that I did paid for itself. It mostly broke even, but it definitely paid, the redesign paid for itself in the higher sales. And I'm still seeing a steady amount of sales that's only gone down about 40% since that high watermark of the month after the launch. Now, book two of this series was released almost a year ago in May of 2022. So it's been a good 9 months since that book has been released, and sales are still pretty decent on it. But if I had to do it over again, this is what I would have done from day one. And in fact, I would just ignored all of those clever Easter eggs that I did. I mean, I was in love with my own cleverness, and I really, really regret that now. So it would have been a lot better had I launched with this design. Very clearly would have been a lot better if I had launched with this design rather than the book cover that did not meet the genre expectations or the reader expectations. One interesting thing to note as well is that the read-through percentage from book one to book two has not changed since I made this change. The people who bought it when it had the old cover went ahead and bought the second one. And whether or not, no matter what the cover looked like. So I thought that was quite interesting, because I had kind of expected that since I was meeting reader expectations a little bit better, I'd see a little bit of a bump to book two. But no, when people like a book, they buy the next book in the series. The final thing I'll say, lest you think this is all lollipops and roses, is that there was that Kobo, which I love Kobo. They're my second best-selling store to Amazon. Kobo Plus, if Kobo Plus wasn't part of Kobo, it would still be my second best store every month. And I've been on, Kobo has put me on their Writing Life podcast. I think Kobo is the cat's pajamas. And they're the ones that I've had problems with. The URL did not change from the very first book. So if you search for the Winterstone murder, you get a URL that says ceremony on it, which is a bummer. But what's a bigger bummer is that even though I changed the series title to the Woodhead and Becker Mysteries, and every time I go into the dashboard, it says the Woodhead and Becker Mysteries, it has never updated on the store. And worse than that, when I contacted Kobo Writing Life, they're like, yeah, so you did everything right. And there's some sort of weird glitch on our side that looks like we don't really have a timetable for fixing it. But why don't you go ahead and unpublish and republish so that you lose all of your data? And by the way, you're going to have to use a new ISBN and everything too. I have just decided to let it stay on Kobo with the correct title, with the correct series title on the book cover, but not on the Kobo store. So, but 4 out of 5 ain't bad, to paraphrase Meatloaf. So with that, I'm going to open this up to questions, and if anybody has anything, I'll certainly do my best that I can to answer.
Well, I know that, hold on, let me fix how the view on here, because I think, let's see, there's that. Okay, there we go. So I took some notes while you were talking so I wouldn't forget. First off, I was applauding. I know you couldn't see or hear me, but I was applauding when you were saying to start with other storefronts first. And that's actually something that Mark Leslie Lefebvre has suggested in podcasts. If you are a brand new author out of the gate, and I know nobody in here is, but to actually start publishing on a storefront other than Amazon from the jump, and then add on Amazon later, because it is the most complicated. So don't start with Google Play either. Like, start with Kobo. If you're brand new out of the gate, like, publish the very first book should be going up on Kobo. They're usually the easiest. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I definitely agreed with that part.
I agree. Kobo is, I think, by far the most intuitive interface for the dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to do it over again, I would start on Kobo with my first, instead of struggling through KDP.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I know everybody's like, oh, that's the important one. Exactly. I mean, sadly enough, it tends to be everybody's biggest seller. So don't start with the most important one. Yeah. Start with something that's has a little bit less pressure on it. Okay. So I was gonna say, I don't use ISBNs for my ebooks. I did for a couple of them, and then I was like, the hell am I doing? I had to pay for these bad boys. I'm gonna be cheap. I'm just gonna use their internal ISBNs, call it a day. I have never tried to change my series or my book titles. But that is a clickable, editable field on all the platforms other than Amazon. So I imagine that you could change the title for the book, even if you use your own ISBN. I have changed series names, and I haven't had any issues, other than sometimes the systems don't want to update. So I've actually had to reach out to Apple, Google Play, and I'm actually talking to Barnes and Noble right now of, like, the old one in the system didn't want to get out and be replaced by the new one. Funnily enough, the one that I've not had that issue with, Kobo. Kobo is the one that, as soon as I changed the series name on the back end, it immediately updated on the front end, and I had no issues. So that is fascinating that is the one that you did have issues with. So just goes to show you're never going to have exactly the same experience as everybody else.
I do know that somebody said, just to confirm, on Amazon, you change your title and subtitle only if you own your own ebook ISBN. I thought that was correct until 2 days ago, when I was telling an author friend of mine about this presentation that I was giving. And she was like, I did it and there was no problem. I just unpublished and republished. I'm like, oh, can you tell me, like, exactly what you did? She's like, no, that was 2 years ago. I have no idea what I did, but I didn't have a problem. So and she's like, and I don't know if it works now because, that was 2 years ago. So if you want to do it, I don't think there's going to be a lot of harm in trying. You'll just get rejected. And if you maybe you can unpublish and then change your title and then republish. I can only speak to what I did and what I have experience with, and I own all my own ISBNs because I made that decision and that investment of 100 ISBNs 3 years ago. And I had kind of regretted it until this came along, and then I'm like, maybe
Yeah,
that's the reason
it worked. I can say you can change your subtitles without an issue. I actually changed my subtitles um fairly often, as I am like, no, actually this would be a better subtitle. So and so I can change subtitles across any of the platforms without any issue whatsoever. So I can answer that part. Again, I've never actually changed the title of any of my books. Now, is it accurate, Paul, that you have a second half to your presentation? Or was
So
this
the no, this was the whole presentation. I gave it
okay?
a little bit faster than I had
No, it's
than I
okay. I
had when
thought
I
that you
ran
had
through my stuff.
I
No,
thought you had
so
two parts, so
the
okay.
first part of the presentation was the why I basically,
Okay.
here's how you know that you need to change this, and then the second thing was the step by step of here's how you change it.
Perfect. So actually this is awesome because I would love to talk for a moment about why you would choose to completely unpublish and republish versus simply change the information in the system. I've actually done both with my series before, with my books, and there are very different reasons. So you have to make the decision what it is that you're wanting to accomplish. Um, so I'll blather on about that. And then if anybody has any questions, be sure to jump in and ask. But I just want to put this part out there. So I have unpublished and republished couple of different books. And then I have also just gone in and did a massive update of the manuscript, replaced the cover, changed the series name, changed the subtitle. The only thing I've never done is change the title of the book. But I've done everything else. Um, so should you be keeping the same basic record? And simply swap out the information like what Paul just walked us through? Or should you unpublish and republish? First off, as Paul pointed out accurately, you're going to have to do that with print, no matter what. So we are talking strictly about ebook right now. The differences really come down to, are you wanting to wipe the slate clean and start fresh with new reviews? Or would you like to keep the reviews that you had gained previously? Um, the momentum that you get, let's see. Let's back up the train for a second. Okay. One of the books that I unpublished and republished completely, I very much did that because I wanted to get rid of the old reviews. Um, they weren't that great. They weren't as high as I wanted them to be. The book was probably rewritten 75% of it. It were new wordies. And I felt like the reviews would be referring to an inaccurate version or a different version than what the reader was actually going to be receiving. They pull up the book, they read the reviews, they get that book, and then the experience that they have is very different than the one that the person has who's writing the review, right? Because it's a very different book now. Um, I didn't like my reviews. I wanted them to go away. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. And that's very different from what Paul had going on, where his readers were happy with the story itself when they got it. They just um it wasn't necessarily reaching the right audience other than I'm sure your newsletter list was a big chunk of the people who were buying your books.
I think it was the only. I think those were the only people who were buying my books. The people who had read my first series and then was like, "What else does he have?" And then the people who were on my newsletter as well. I don't think it was reaching anyone else, or if it was reaching other people, they were rejecting the purchase of it right off the bat.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so I I wanted to get rid of these terrible reviews that were on my books, on a couple of different books. So by completely unpublishing and uploading a totally new file, then I am able to wipe the slate clean and start fresh as if this book has never been published before. In the blurb, I would put beneath the blurb itself. This is was previously published on such and such a date. This book has been completely reworked, and I hope you enjoy it. You do have to I did that where I unpublished and republished with 2 books. One of them was my perma-free. So I wasn't worried about pissing anybody off who had bought the book the first time because, they paid no money for it, and so I just put it back up and made it free from the get-go, and so the concern with unpublishing and republishing is that the system won't yell at the reader and say, "Hey, you already own this book." Because the system sees them as 2 completely separate files. So if you're gonna unpublish and republish, you need to make sure that you are still offering a good customer experience. So I did that with my perma-free. That obviously didn't cause any issues, and then I did it with a book that did have a price tag on it. And so I offered it for free for the first month. Sent it out to all my readers, and then I also have it in the blurb itself. This is, rework, blah, 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 blah. Hopefully I've never had anybody yell at me, "Hey, I bought this book already, and then you have it for sale again." So I don't know, but it's been like almost a year and a half, and I've never had anybody get upset with me about it. So, I feel like by making it free out of the gate, then I could avoid, those busy people. So wiping away your reviews is one of the things. If you wanted to unpublish and republish for whatever reason, but you want to keep your reviews, first off, probably don't do that. That just do what Paul just walked us through. But at least on Kobo and Barnes Noble, they can move your reviews over on the back end. Um, you're gonna lose them everywhere else. So
So you can talk to Amazon about it, and I have I know authors who have been successful moving reviews over on Amazon. I
mhm.
also know authors who have been unsuccessful moving them over on Amazon, but it's about 3 to 1 successful versus unsuccessful.
Yes, and actually, I meant to say, one of the ways that you can maybe, finagle it is if you have ebook and print up on Amazon, and you would like to, unpublish the ebook and republish it completely new, you can do that. Leave the print book alone. You unpublish the ebook, all the reviews stay with the print book. Republish a new ebook, connect those 2 back together, the reviews transfer over to the ebook. So if you have a print that it can go to, some sort of file that it can go to, you don't even have to contact Amazon to ask them to do that. So there's that too. But yeah, uh, for the most part, unless you have a really good reason to need to completely unpublish and republish, it's better to just edit the file, the metadata, and then that way the system will tell readers, hey, you already have this book, right? I really don't think you want to buy it again. And that helps with the reader experience. Let's see. We had chats come in. Let me see what they say. Okay. DF Hart, Deanna, I did this with my romance novellas and I just opted to unpub and start completely over again because I honestly didn't have enough ratings or reviews to sweat trying to carry them over. Yeah. And that can be a big, good heavens. That can be a big consideration, right? That it's like there was nothing there to even worry about. So let's just throw it all out the door and start over. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to say the other thing that can be a real big pain in the patootie if you completely unpublish and republish is all of your URLs will break and you will have to be putting in all new links everywhere. So hold on, Paul. Did this change your URLs? You said it didn't change it on Kobo, but what about like Barnes and Noble? Because that
Uh,
information is in the URL.
so my old URLs on all of the stores except for Kobo, just go to the new URL. So
They just
nothing.
auto forward.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, smart. Okay.
Yep. And for Amazon, I had put in my books to read link. I had only put the UBL in there, and the
Hmm.
UBL didn't change. Not the UBL, the ASIN. So I didn't have slash GP slash
Hmm.
ceremony slash. I only had the ISI, the ASIN number.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because it's amazing when you unpublish and republish and you have a whole new slew of URLs. It's then that you realize how many places that URL had been uploaded and is at. So your website, the backs of books, swaps that you've done with other authors, BookBub, and trying to track all of that down and change it over can be a pain in the patootie. Okay, Ophelia, I did the same thing with my first two series. Amazon did transfer my old reviews. Cool. I did it mostly for the refresh new covers and to get them out again as new releases to get some extra Amazon love. I don't know. That's a really good point, is that Amazon very much rewards that new ebook smell in the morning. So when you completely unpublish and republish, you get a lot of extra momentum. The opposite is true for the wide platforms. You are starting over at the bottom of the hill, and you are now going to have to work yourself back up in terms of any momentum that was going. So it's a really good point to make there. I did unpub and repub the new on the same day. The metadata had to stay the same. Um, so for one that I wanted to change the title of, I had to wait until the reviews were synced, then change the title. Interesting. Okay. All right. Any
So I
yes.
one thing I just want to correct the last thing I said about the books to read stuff. When I changed the series title, I also changed the book to read links so that they didn't say Substance 1 and Substance 2. They said Woodhead 1 and Woodhead 2 because I changed the series name. I believe, but I'm not 100% sure, that I had just gone in to the UBL links and I changed um, the the shortened version of the custom title in
Mhm.
there. I think that's all I did. I don't think I created a new one with the new links, but uh, I'm not sure. So I I had said pretty confidently that I hadn't changed them before, and now I'm not quite so confident. So take that with a grain of salt. You may have to change your books to read links or whatever other shortened links you use.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, and another place that you have to update all of the links if you do decide to unpublish and republish is Vellum. So if you are using Vellum and it is doing the where you put in the store links and you're putting in the ID number and the EAIN and all that stuff, yeah, you'll have to update in Vellum. And I will sometimes pull an old Vellum file and find really old links in there, and I'm like, ah. So that can be a pain in the patootie.
And of course, you'll want to change your copyright page to the new title as well, and change your also by author name to reflect the new title and the new series as well. Just
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, it can be a lot. But I feel like if your series was not packaged out of the gate correctly because of a lack of knowledge, and now that you have gained the knowledge that you need, it can be worth it to make the changes that will help you find the readers that you're wanting to find. Um, I I've often said you're not looking for readers for your books. You're looking for your future super fans. So if you are not showing up under the right searches, or if you're not attracting the right readers, there's could be a fundamental change that needs to be done to the book to make sure that you do attract the right readers and all that good fun stuff. So
Part of the reason why I put that first part in this is because I had been successful with that first series, and that made me think that I was pretty awesome and I like super knew what I was doing and stuff. And it turns out that I it turns out that yes, I did know what I was doing, and I went ahead and I made very wrong decisions anyway. I got so in love with the idea of that New Order Substance album and turning that into a mystery series that I totally was not even looking at the stuff I should be looking at. And I think as as authors, if we've had success, I think there is a sense that now that we know what we're doing, we can't make the mistakes that other lesser authors make. And I feel and I remember when I had that realization, I was like, I suck. Like and the thing is, I was kicking myself because I knew better. I knew better, and I still didn't do it right. So, and that was a really difficult thing to realize. And I think as human beings, we have that kind of, oh no, I know how to do this. I'm just going to throw good money after bad. And that one of the points of that first section was maybe it's you. If it's not selling right, and it's really important to realize that maybe it's you, and you'll be in a much better position when you realize that it is you and that you need to fix it than just powering through it and just being wrong for another year or 2 or 5 or 10.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like we can put off making major changes that we know that we need to because it can be intimidating. But it doesn't get better. If Paul had been like, I really feel like I should make some major changes to this, but what if I just published a couple more books and let's see if it takes off after that, right? And if it doesn't, then I'll make changes. Well, then you have twice as many books that need to have all this done to it. And you've wasted way more time. You've wasted all of those new release launches. You've wasted all the momentum that you could have started building because you're like, well, let's just see, because I really don't want to do this. Sometimes you just have to, sadly enough. Okay. So Ophelia says, my whole thing with my first series was is it Jungian archetype? LOL. I was so clever. Yeah, that sounds like something an author would do of like, I'm gonna is it Charles Young? No, what's the name of the dude? Who does the archetypes? Carl Jung.
Carl
That's
Jung.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Charles doesn't sound quite right. Anyway, but yeah, that seems like something that an author would do of like, oh, I'm going to be so creative. Use these archetypes that are out there. And the readers in romance are like, I don't understand. Okay. Any questions before we run away? We all run away. Okay. Paul, I feel like this is, like I said before, I feel like this is going to be referred back to quite a bit as people this is something that I have to have conversations with authors about fairly often. Because sometimes you need an outside perspective to help you realize that you really did get it wrong from the jump. And
You
so,
were one of the people who made me realize that I had to start over with my title and my series name.
yeah, I remember those conversations. It's not easy to hear that because you're like, but I did so
But I'm
much
so
work.
clever. I'm so clever and it's so awesome. And like the people who get it are like totally going to be all, this is awesome.
Yes.
That doesn't happen.
So I have to ask, did anybody get it? Like, did even like one reader get it?
I have a very good friend who is super, super into New Order
Uh-huh.
and he got it, but he is not a mystery reader. So I gave
So that
him
was
the
no
books.
word whatsoever.
I gave him the books and he was like, this is so awesome. I love these. And but he's like, but you know, like I don't read mystery books, right? Like that's
But
not
I'll
what I
keep them
do.
on my shelf and stare at them. Good
But
job, Paul.
you put some orcs with swords in it and I'm there. I'm like, yeah, that's not what I write. Sorry.
All right. I was born in 81 and I've never heard of New Order. Is it called New Order?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I don't even can
Yeah.
remember if that was actually the name of
You
it.
were
So,
6 when that compilation album came out. So
okay.
yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay. That explains a lot. All right. Well, everybody have an awesome month if I don't see you before. And yeah, take care. Bye, you
Thanks
guys.
everyone.